didn't agree. I was the oddball. There is a problem when we're spending all this money for political sensitivity courses and reviewing the mating habits of the African bees. That's where we are spending this money, this massive amount on our education system. We ought to be spending it for something more practical like welding and the vocational schools.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Dunn.
Thank you. I'm a huge advocate for the trade schools and the community colleges and the state colleges. My wife sits on the board of 2 of them in our own town. We have done a lot of fundraising for them over the years. But the thing that makes the economy, makes it for a better job environment is a growing economy. We have to have a growing economy. If that happens, that economy will inform the trade schools and the K-12 schools, all the universities, what we need our people trained in. The only obstacle to growth in America is bad government policy. I want to say that again. The only obstacle to economic growth in America is bad government policy. We can make good policy, we can make clear-headed choices about taxes and regulations, and the economy will take off like a shot. That's what we need to do.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas, you will start this next round. Since the inception of Roe v. Wade, abortion has been one of the hot buttons for political campaigns. What is your stance on abortion, and do you believe in exceptions for abortion?
As a strong Christian and a mom of a 2.5-year-old son, I am ardently pro-life, at life at all of its stages, and I do not support abortion, and I do not support any exceptions to abortion. We need to immediately defund Planned Parenthood. Taxpayers should not be paying for the killing of millions of innocent babies and for the brutal harvesting of their baby body parts. I spoke out against this when I saw that Gwen Graham had received over $5,500 in Planned Parenthood funds. I called on her to return those funds. And then I saw her at a North Florida parade, and I told her that I'm praying for her to return that Planned Parenthood money. That is the same type of person that we need in Washington. Someone who is unafraid and who will stand up and always stand for life. That's why I've been endorsed by the largest pro-life group in the nation, the Susan B. Anthony list, because they know that I will always be a strong and vocal advocate for life.
Thank you, ma'am. Mr. Sakai.
I am strongly pro-life. I have been all my life. And when I look at the Roe v. Wade decision, I think it's outrageous that the court said, and I quote, they said, "We need not decide the difficult question of when life begins." And I feel like, well, wait a second. If you can't decide, then why are you saying that it can be taken? So I strongly believe that life within the womb is life, and that when you're dealing with little ones who feel pain, who have brain waves, whose hearts are beating, that it's outrageous that 58.5 million unborn children have been taken from the womb since Roe v. Wade. And I feel so strongly about it that I have indeed fought them on the front lines on these very issues, including recently in Washington.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Dunn.
Thank you. I too have been pro-life all my life, not just for the campaign. I'm Catholic. I want to put this in context for you. I'm a surgeon, and in the specialty that I practice, which is urology, it is the most common reason for in vivo surgery, that is in utero surgery, where we operate on babies who are unborn. That typically, the ideal time for that to occur is between 12 and 15 weeks of pregnancy. And we would, believe me, agonize over intervening in a pregnancy because we're terribly afraid we might precipitate a problem. But we were fortunate. We saved a lot of young lives, and I was fortunate enough to practice that long enough and see these children being born and born healthy with their kidneys saved. So the question to me of whether or not a child in a womb, it is a child in a womb, a human being, not a choice, there is no thought process there. They're a child, and I feel strongly about that.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moran.
This answer is very easy for me. It's guided by my faith. Life begins at conception, period. There are no exceptions. That's it. this gives me time to go back to the question beforehand. We're talking about trade schools and what we're doing about high cost of college. I'm the only one up here without a professional degree. I've done okay. College wasn't for me. I went back to school as I was working in the police department. But we need to tell our people that it's okay. You can still succeed. You can be successful. You can drive nice cars without going to college and coming out with a massive debt. You know, there's nothing wrong with working with your hands, but there is something wrong with having $100,000 worth of school debt and no good job. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Sukayo, you'll be first on this next question. As long as there are a huge number of people receiving monthly welfare checks and entitlements, the Democrat Party will continue to curry favor. If by some stroke of misfortune Hillary Clinton becomes our 44th president, what can we expect your plan of action to become and your biggest challenge at that point?
Well, I noted that some 30 states pay more to their welfare recipients than they would receive getting minimum wage. And, you know, there's something wrong when there's a culture of welfare, a culture of receiving. I toured a facility the other day in which most of the persons who use the services were on welfare. And they said it goes back 3 and 4 generations. I think our system that rewards mothers of children to not have the fathers in the home is wrong. I think a system that offers people more funding and hope by sitting at home and receiving a check rather than working is wrong. So I would focus on changing the system to one that promoted and encouraged productivity.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Dunn.
Thank you. I too think that the system has been perverted and it disincentivizes work saving and investment. Clearly, it pays many, many people better to sit at home. Your question was, what about if Hillary Clinton becomes president? I have to say, I got goosebumps when you asked that question. But the answer is you really do have a terrible problem there, and that's why we all have to go out and vote for a Republican president. I don't care what you think of the Republican candidate. You need to vote Republican, because if you don't vote Republican, you're going to lose your Constitution. You're going to lose your country. We don't have another 4 years to readdress this question. This is it. This is our last chance to save America, the America we grew up in. Please, I implore you, vote Republican for president and tell everybody you know and threaten them if they don't, because this is it, the last opportunity.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moran.
There's a lot of talk about the presidency here. Let's remember that if Congress will go up and do their job and take on the hard fight, even when it's not popular, it doesn't matter who sits in that seat. It is our responsibility to make this sure that this country stays on track. And the only way you're going to do that is you're going to go up there and you're going to make some unpopular decisions. I don't want to go to Washington to make friends. I'm not going to go to Washington to see what kind of money I can get, what kind of power I can amass. That's not what this is about. Our founding fathers laid out the House of Representatives to reflect the people back here. And until we go up there and we start taking these hard choices and take control of our government back, we're going down the wrong road, and I'm telling you, I will not take you down that path.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas, you will finish up this round.
I have had to work hard for everything that I've achieved, and my parents have had to as well. They had no money when they came to this country, but through hard work, self-sufficiency, and perseverance, they started a successful medical practice. And that's what we need to instill in young people today. We need to get the federal government out of the way and empower people to be able to learn and to be able to work hard and earn their own living. We need to focus on our families. We need to focus on getting back to church. We need to focus on our morals. And we need to focus on getting back to the free market and getting the federal government out of our lives. Without that, we're going to continue to have this system where people are dependent upon the government. That's not what our founders intended for our country. And I will fight against the system. able-bodied people need to be working in this country.
Thank you, ma'am. By the way, it's not too late if you'd like to submit a question in writing and pass it up this way. We may have the opportunity to ask a few more, so if you have any questions that have come to mind in the course of the conversation, please do so. And Dr. Dunn, you'll be first on this next round. Many of our U.S. servicemen and women, many in harm's way even as we speak today, are being neglected, cut short on what they deserve as far as health care and other GI or VA benefits. What will and can you do to address these issues?
Thank you very much. You've asked a question that's near and dear to my heart. I come from a military background, multi-generations. My father was a veteran, his fathers were. My wife's story is the same. Her parents, every generation from the Revolutionary War to Afghanistan in our families has served in the military. We have a son who just got back. We're proud of our veterans. We love our veterans. And we are treating them in a ghastly fashion when they return back. The Veterans Administration shorts them in many, many ways. And the psychological support that they need stands out as one of the gravest of the shortages that they have. The VA system is monumentally expensive. There are 365,000 civilians employed in the Veterans Administration. The cost of that program for the care that it delivers and the care that it fails to deliver is just unbelievable. We need to offer the veterans the choice of getting their care outside of the VA or in the VA.
Thank you, sir.
And let the money follow them.
Mr. Moran.
This is near and dear to me. My nephew, who I raised like a son, was in Iraq. He and his driver got hit with an RPG. They made it back, but not quite the same way that they left. And I will not sit back and let our government treat our young men and women like pawns in a chess game. It is not going to happen. You will not see that come from me. Beyond that, as a police officer, I work countless suicides of our veterans. I've read their suicide notes that were their last cry of help, for help, that went unanswered. This is not acceptable. They deserve better. I will stand with our veterans. We will make sure they get the health care and the psychological care that they deserve. We owe that to them, and they will get it if I'm in Washington.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas.
We need to start treating our veterans with the honor and the respect that they deserve. And it is appalling that even under the Republicans' control, the abuse at the VA continues. The VA secretary needs to be immediately fired. He is comparing lines at the VA to lines in Disneyland. I have put out a full-scale plan to help our veterans, which is on our website. We need to let the veterans make their own healthcare decisions. Let the dollars follow the veterans. So if they want to seek private care, they should be able to do that. And the VA should operate not as a bureaucracy, but as a medical clinic, like the Mayo Clinic. And we need to force VA administrators to fire employees who are not doing their jobs. Right now, they're giving them raises. This has to change. And this all has been occurring under the establishment Republicans' watch. That's why we need to elect fresh, new, strong conservative voices who will go up to Washington.
Thank you, ma'am. And Mr. Sakai, you have the final word on this question.
Yes, I of course agree wholeheartedly with the sentiments that have been expressed by my fellow candidates. I agree with Mary's suggestion, or Mary's point about making healthcare available, private healthcare available to the veterans. But the problem is, this illustrates what happens when the government is running an agency, and when the government is getting themselves involved in what typically is a private sort of business. It's a mess. They don't ever do anything right. And this goes all the way back to the Union Central Pacific Railroad, when it was a complete scandal-ridden total flop. And that's the problem. So unless you give the veterans the opportunity to have private health care, it's going to continue. just because the government is not equipped to run things efficiently.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Moran, you will start the next round of questions. What life, business, or professional experience do you have that will make you an effective congressman or woman?
I live this. I live out here with you. I run my own business. I worked as a police officer. I've seen people at their best, and I've seen them at their worst. I'm not an establishment lawyer. I've not worked for the government in my career. I've never sat in front of Congress and lobbied for or against anything. What makes me ready for this job? Because I'm one of you. And it's about time that we have our voice heard there instead of a special interest and someone that's not had enough time outside of the government employment.
Thank you. Ms. Thomas.
Well, frankly, we've got thousands of years of experience in Washington right now, and they are not getting the job done. We need to elect fresh, new, strong conservative voices who will stand up to the Washington establishment and say no more. No more taxes, no more wasteful spending, no more regulations. I actually have had extensive experience working on issues that directly impact the 2nd District. I worked on the Apalachicola Bay and strategizing on how to bring freshwater flows back to the Bay, and ultimately we filed a lawsuit in the U.S. Supreme Court against Georgia to get our waters back. I also served as the governor's representative against the Department of Justice to secure our state and local interests after the Deepwater Horizon oil spill. And I was the governor's representative on the Florida Defense Force Task Force, where we worked to protect our military bases in the next frac and ensure that they will be safe from encroachment. Mostly what we need in Washington is a fresh conservative voice.
Well, this tends to go back to what I was saying initially, and that is that it's going to be the case that pretty much everybody who seeks office in a conservative district is going to say they're going to support conservative causes. But you know, this has been going on for years. People have been telling us this. They've been running as conservatives, and something happens to them when they get to Washington. And they govern as moderates or liberals. I can pledge to you that I won't do that. And how do you know? Because I have been fighting them all my life. I have been fighting these issues. I fought Obamacare. I went up to Washington to fight for Terry Schiavo, that she might be given a right to a stay. I went to Washington to fight for the Internet Decency Act. I fought, and my record would reflect that I have fought for these issues throughout my life, and you would know that I will not back off from them in Congress.
Thank you, sir. Dr. Dunn, you've got the final word.
Thank you. All candidates, I think, do sound alike on the stump. What you have to do is look at their backgrounds behind them, see what they've done in order to actually judge who they are. I have a history of organizing large groups of professionals, bringing together their efforts and delivering solutions. I did it in the military, I did it in healthcare, and I've done it in business successfully. And this, I'm not a politician. This isn't some new career path for me. There's nothing I need or want in Washington except a better future for all of our children. And I'm willing to sacrifice and fight to get it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas, you will start off the next round. What is the single most compelling issue facing Florida's 2nd Congressional District today?
I think the most important issue that's really facing not only our district, but our country is radical Islamic terrorism. And as we've seen from the horrific attacks that occurred in Orlando, we need to have strong voices up there. Voices who will stand by people like Donald Trump and fight ISIS. They are out here, radical Islamic terrorists, and we are allowing them into our country. We need to stop that. We need to stop immigration from all countries that harbor or support terrorism or terrorists. And we need to fight for our country. We haven't been doing that. In our country, in the world, we're actually seen as weak right now. I believe in Ronald Reagan's peace through strength. We need to increase the size and strength of our military and develop the most technologically advanced forces. And when we need to use force